I'm going to pass it off on today's presenter, Mark Cassini. He was the co-founder and director for Community Greening. And I mean, we're looking forward to hearing everything he has to say about his efforts and I mean the formation of the group and then like all the lessons he's learned from it too.
Okay. Thanks, John. Thanks, Kara, for having me. And thanks everyone for joining during lunchtime today. So yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our, urban forestry nonprofit that we started in Delray Beach 7 years ago. A little bit about where we are today and really what are the issues in urban forestry and how have we developed community tree planting partnerships. So we've learned a lot along the way, and hopefully, there's something that you can take back to your community, and we can get more trees planted in Florida. So just let's see. I think you might have stopped. Did you stop sharing? Oh, here we go. Okay. So Community Greening, we're, like I said, urban forestry nonprofit. So we really started this 7 years ago because trees were coming down in our community, canopy trees. So like all of Florida, it's developing very fast, and people were upset that trees were being lost, and either no trees were going up to replace them or palm trees were going up. So it really was like a group of people that got together, all different people in the community saying, we really want to invest in our green spaces and we want to plant trees. And so we were able to work with the city and start a nonprofit because we knew we couldn't just go through the city, or we couldn't, focus on the county or the state to hope to fund it. And we really had to do it ourselves. And so we started a nonprofit and 501c3, and it's really, really modeled after a lot of urban forestry nonprofits that are around the country. So we were fortunate enough that this has been going on for a long time. Tree People started in LA in 1973. And really, in many other cities, this has started in the 80s. And so there's been an urban forestry nonprofit, and we were able to learn from those groups. So I'm from Indiana. There's a group there called Keep Indianapolis Beautiful that does urban forestry. And we learned a lot from them, and just kind of took that model to here. So our vision really is seeing that, an engaged community can create these sustainable green spaces, and that the tree canopy can equitably strengthen, like you see there, the environment, the economy, society, and health. And so, we're looking at trees, and you'll see through this presentation as all the different types of benefits that they really have, and how diverse that is, and how we really believe it does strengthen our community. It makes it a better place to live, and the those benefits are just, go on and on of what they can really do. As far as an organization, we have our values there, and this is just kind of how we've modeled it. Accountability, everyone working here and our partners that we have, we're definitely community focused and have just built ourselves on partnerships and working with, whether it's schools, nonprofits, businesses, city government. Obviously, our value is the environment, because we feel a lot of people are anxious about climate change, and there's obviously a lot of despair around that. And we wanted to do something. So we wanted to be proactive about it and give people a hands-on experience on how they can do something to combat climate change. And then equity, and you'll hear, just like John was talking about the tree equity score, there's a big focus on equity in the tree canopy. And then fun. We don't want to hit people over the head with that doom and gloom, and we want to have people have a good time. And so that was one thing when we co-founded this 7 years ago with a guy who's third generation Delray Beach. We were able to go around the country and see other places, and he's like, if we're going to do this in Florida, we've got to make it fun. So we've tried to do that from the beginning. So like I said, this is a nationwide network. So if you're looking around, Alliance for Community Trees is a group of community-based nonprofits, and there's a couple hundred of them. We meet every year as part of the Partners in Community Forestry Conference that the Arbor Day has. This year it was hosted by the UN, FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. It was in DC. And Yeah, it's really amazing. There's a worldwide network of people doing urban forestry. There's a nationwide network. And so we've really leaned on that group of people, and they've been, extremely generous with sharing their best practices and lessons learned. And yeah, there's a few. There's one in Miami that's Citizens for a Better South Florida, also the Million Tree campaign, which is run by the county in Miami. There's a group in Jacksonville, Greenscape. There's a group in Tampa, I believe, as far as the state of Florida, in the Alliance for Community Trees. But you can go on their website and see all the different groups, and then just and go across the states and see what type of work is being done in urban forestry. Then there's the Florida Urban Forestry Council, which is a wide group of different arborists and people working in urban forestry that meets annually and meets regularly for different types of trainings and meetings. So we're really just a part of this group of people that we're working in Palm Beach County and in Broward primarily. So why trees and all the things they do? I mean, it's a big one in Florida and really everywhere right now is extreme heat. So, we had one of the hottest years on record in 2023. It's probably just going to keep getting hotter. So we had one expert, Vivek Chandas, who spoke at a conference, and he said, yeah, it was a very hot summer, but it also might be one of the cooler summers that we experience for the rest of our lives, the way, it keeps increasing. And so trees do cool the temperature 10 degrees. Some people say it's 5 degrees, some it's 15 degrees, but usually we like to say it's around 10 degrees, the difference between being in the shade or being in the sun. They reduce your energy use because if you're shading your building, you're not having to use your AC unit as much. So strategically placed trees to shade buildings would reduce energy use. They do reduce stormwater. I mean, the list you can see here, the list really goes on and on. These are many benefits of cleaning the air. For example, the National Institute of Health has a program called Green Heart, where they've funded a multi-million-dollar project to plant trees along highways around Louisville, as there's connection between trees intercepting air pollutants and heart disease. So, I mean, a lot of times I just like to talk about these things because we don't really think of trees as doing all of these, critical life supporting, I don't want to say services, but the benefits that they have. So obviously they're providing habitat for wildlife. If you want to just hear about the money, they're increasing your property value. So they say it's around 7% that people would pay more for a lot with trees on it than without. And then a cool thing in Florida, and I'll talk a little bit about, is food security. So, you could do it food security around the country, but we can grow a lot more fruit in South Florida to provide, for people that are food insecure and that can pick from the trees that we plant. So the list goes on and on as far as tree evangelism. So that's just some of the things why trees are good for us. So the tree canopy is really what we talk about when we're talking about, how many trees a certain geographic area has. So that's, take a certain geographic area, what percentage is covered in trees, and that's your tree canopy. So in the cities where we've started, it really gives us our baseline of knowing how many trees do we have. So, I mean, we're not just planting trees willy-nilly. It's like we need to know how many trees do we have, and how many trees can we possibly plant. And I'll kind of get into a little bit about that on the tree planting campaigns. So healthy tree canopy is, said around 30 to 40%. That would be ideal. Unfortunately, I don't think many of our cities can really even get there anymore based on plantable spaces. And I'll share a few lists of kind of where what tree canopy cities have around here. And then tree equity is just something we learned fairly quickly, is that trees are not evenly distributed. So if you kind of pay attention driving around, there is neighborhoods with higher minorities, lower incomes have fewer trees, and then vice versa. So it's really apparent that the benefits aren't equally distributed as well. So if you're really thinking about flooding and stormwater reduction, if you're thinking about air pollution, if you're thinking about higher temperatures, not all of us are affected in the same way by that. And that's really because of tree inequity. Um, Tree equity, you can kind of take a little bit of time to look at these maps. You can see where there's tree canopy coverage. There's fewer houses in poverty. Where there's more poverty, there's fewer tree canopies, fewer trees. And then the same with race. And this really goes back to even to redlining in the 30s and 40s, where there was a lack of investment in those communities, and it continues today, and maybe where a city will replace a tree faster and in certain neighborhoods, or where residents have more disposable income to take care of trees or replace trees, all the costs that come along with having a tree. So you will see that this disparity is pretty large. I can give you a couple examples, like in Delray Beach. There's neighborhoods that have more minorities in them, and their canopy coverage is around 13-15%. And in other neighborhoods, more privileged areas, it's 44%. So, you think about that, 3 times as many trees, and you're thinking about all the benefits that trees have, and there's all those correlations for residents. So this is tree equity. You can go to treeequityscore.org. You can type in your address, and it'll give you your score there, taking in different factors for it. So we like to say that we're planting trees where they're needed most, and so we're focusing on areas with low tree canopy. So to give you an idea of that, if we're saying that 30 to 40% is a good healthy tree canopy, this gives you, some tree canopy coverages in this area, and it you have the tree canopy, and then you have what you could possibly plant. So, for example, in Belglade, 6%, that is taking out the agricultural areas of that, of that city, and they really could get up to about 20%. Let's see. Sorry, I just got a notice pop up. In Delray, for example, it's 23%. They could possibly go up to 39% in the possible planting area. Boca Raton is 26%, and they have a possible planting area of 28%. So you can kind of see that's only a 2% that they could possibly increase their tree canopy. So it doesn't really make sense for a place like Boca Raton to say, hey, we're going to plant 30,000 trees when there's no real space to plant the trees. Florida is in one of the top 3 states of losing tree canopy coverage and the value of green space. And I'm assuming everyone on the call is probably a Florida resident, and that's probably not a surprise to people too, because of, there's a lot of people moving here, and there's a lot of building going on and development. We also get hurricanes, and we have pests that take away trees. So, there's reasons why we're losing trees, and they're, all the more reason of why we need to be planting trees. Otherwise, we're going to continue to lose canopy. This is just an example of some other cities of what their tree canopy coverage is. So I think, many people would argue that some of these cities are built environments, and have still maintained green space in different ways. And so that kind of gives you an example of what that tree canopy coverage is. And these are obviously good examples. There are other cities that, you could say Chicago's 19, or Jersey City's is 19, something around there. But these are examples of healthy tree canopies in some pretty large areas. So what we've done in community greening is really, it was a community effort in getting a tree campaign going. So it was like, okay, we're gonna start planting trees in the parks. We know we need more trees. Let's get the tree canopy assessed. There are various companies that do this. That's not what we do, but a city puts out you know, an RFP to get their tree canopy assessed. And there's a couple Florida companies that do it. There's national companies, and give you a report of what the tree canopy is and what the possible planting areas are. And so, for example, like in Delray, they decided to increase their canopy by 5%, and that 5% equated to 10,000 more trees. We're in the year 3 of that campaign. So that was a 5-year campaign from 2020 to 2025. And so we've planted 5,000 trees in Delray. And Boynton Beach has trying to increase their canopy by 4%. So they have more square miles than Delray does. So for them, that equates to 45,000 trees. And in Hallandale, these are the different contracts we have. Hallandale would be 35,000 trees. And the reason I put that up there is, one, it's based on science and math, that why we have this campaign and this amount of trees. And the other reason I put it up there is because it's a lot of trees. I mean, it's in the first couple of years after we planted 1,000 trees or so, you know, people would say, like, haven't you guys planted enough trees? And it's an example of like the rate at we're losing trees and how many trees we need to plant in order to have a healthy canopy. Is you're not talking, you know, a few hundred trees to increase the canopy in a city. So, and that's kind of brings me to how this works, what we've developed in the 7 years here. You have your tree canopy assessment, you have the possible planting areas, you have recommended planting locations in that tree canopy assessment. And this is where it comes to a big team effort on our urban forestry nonprofit and with city partners. And so it's really comes down to lists of lots, and whether it's a city-owned lot, whether it's something we call a partner owned lot, which is like a school district or county property, or if it's residential. And so for the city lots, we start with all the lots that you have: parks, cemeteries, city buildings, right-of-ways. And this is the part of the work that's done inside the city. This, you know, is something that's improved. When we started, it was us trying to recommend these places, and that's very challenging to be on the outside in recommending where to plant. But if you have a group like a sustainability department, which we do in Delray Beach, this is where the contract lies with them, and then they propose to the other groups, to parks, public works, utilities, you know, what about planting in Flamingo Park? Right away, the answer might be, no, we're going to develop that in 2 years. Or, you know, this is the, you know, anything. They play football there. Okay, no, we're not planting there. But if it's a yes, then it goes into public works, into utilities, to determine where we can plant in those locations. And so we're now in year 3. So we've planted all the public parks in the first couple of years. Last year, we planted all the public schools in Delray Beach. And I'll give you an example of that. And now we're really into, you know, finding city properties of where we can plant. We just plant the municipal owned golf course. And, you know, it's just been a long, continuous effort of getting those trees in the ground and working with a team of finding locations. So I just say that because it's not easy. And also because a lot of groups are like, oh, there's no place to plant trees. But there really is, if you keep working together and looking at where you can plant, and not planting in anywhere, obviously, that's going to be developed or has many complications with, you know, utilities or other reasons why there shouldn't be trees. So we definitely don't want to be the group that's planting trees where they shouldn't be, and, you know, losing reputation and losing any credibility with that. So we're planting trees in the right place, right tree, right place. So from that point, once the location's been selected, we do walkthrough with city staff, and then any feedback's provided with that. And then we design it. We have 3 certified arborists on staff. And we send that design in to the city, and then they approve it, and then we start planning the event logistics. So to kind of tell you a little bit of our events. So this is used a program called Tree Plotter. Um, this gives you an idea. This is when we planted Carver Middle School last year. So you can see we were able to plant 210 native trees on this site. With the exception, you can see there, Royal Point Sienna is not a native tree, but I think everything else is there. And really, this is a walkthrough with the principal, with the gym teacher, with the science teacher on where they wanted trees and why they wanted trees. So you can see we kind of outlined the softball field back there with slash pine, and there's a swale, so maples and cypress. We planted small shrub natives like Jamaican capers around the track there, so it's not anything that's going to like come into the track. We lined it with gumbos and paradise on the north side of that track, and you can just see like in the parking lot, the school district doesn't want certain trees. So we go to that, just follow the list of the school district. And this planting plan goes to the city and it goes to the school district, and they say yes or no. And we're always just very accepting. We're not fighting for anything. And, they get to decide where they want the trees. So from that point, we plan a planting. And this is where we really like to involve the community. This is what we've been doing for the past 7 years, and it is, making this fun. So we place each tree where it's going to be planted. It has a bucket of mulch, it has a trunk guard, and it has a tree mado, which is the staking system. And so we place each of those trees where they're going to be planted. Everyone gathers around at the beginning. We have a DJ, who's, both kind of like emceeing the event and also playing music, which we found critical to having a good time planting trees, to have the music along with it. And we give a demonstration. We first give a quick little overview on what the tree canopy is and why we're all out here. And we've never really had a problem with getting volunteers. So we really try to match the number of trees we plant to the number of volunteers we have. So, like this is 10th Street. We probably planted 40 trees there and had about 40 people there. And that's usually a 2-hour event. So once the trees go in the ground, then we maintain those trees for a year. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. These are same thing with the school, which I kind of went through. And, schools just, they don't have the capacity to do the tree planting or maintain the trees. And so you can see a lot of the schools in our area are just extremely lacking in any type of shade or canopy. So it's been really a privilege and success that we've been able to plant so many at local schools, and we take care of them for that year. So they really are, they should be established by that time of having them in the ground for a year and us maintaining them for that time. So you heard me say that residential property, is another way to increase tree canopy, and it is really not the main way, but it's extremely important, because if you think a city might own 10% of the land in within the city limits, if the city's funding a tree campaign and the money can only go to city property, your campaign's going to be pretty limited in how much it can increase the tree canopy. And the reason I say that is because some cities are more flexible in understanding that the tree canopy is a benefit for all the residents, whether the tree's on residential property or on city property. And other cities are more inflexible, that the city funding can only go towards a tree that's going to be on city property. So if that's the case, like I'm saying, you're going to be pretty limited in how much you can increase the tree canopy. So tree giveaways are a great way of doing that. And we do this, again, we have a DJ, we have trees. We just had 2 on MLK Day. We had one in Boca and one in Hallandale Beach. We gave around 400 trees away. And and really we do one native and one fruit tree, and residents can come and they show us their ID and they get these trees. These are 3-gallon trees that they can go plant in their yard. And so with the tree giveaway, some people say a free tree is a dead tree, but it's not. That's not what the data shows as far as when trees have been tracked and seeing survivability. So, I mean, a few studies in Missouri, they have a large tree giveaway program that's funded by their Forest Service, and they did survival checks on things after 5 years, and they had an 81% survival rate. There's one in Sacramento that does Sacramento Tree Foundation. There's studies there that show it's 60 to 70%. So, I mean, I say that because I just want to kind of dispel the myth that tree giveaways don't work. Because if a city's funding giving away 200 trees, and even if you have, 50% survive, you have 100 trees in the community, that same funding for one tree giveaway is probably the city funding to plant maybe 20 trees on their property, probably less. So, I mean, this does, even if you do have, of course, some of these trees are going to die, but the ones that live is going to far outnumber how many you could get if you planted just with the planting campaign. So, tree giveaways is, a good way to get trees out there and increase the canopy. And also fruit trees is a way of providing fruit and a healthy diet to that. I think, is people are extremely happy to get it. And it's also cool to be able to respond to the community's needs and give away trees that people are excited about having, or maybe they had them in their home country and they can, one, even find it because maybe they wouldn't have been able to find it on their own, and two, have it and share it with their kids or make food that they would have made wherever they're from. So tree giveaways are usually a really fun event and ways to get the tree canopy up on residential property. So our urban orchards, again, talking about food security, this is one of our first projects. We planted this in 2017, and it is still going strong. This is an early picture of it, so all those trees are much bigger now. And the Urban Forestry Program of the Year from the Florida Urban Forestry Council last year, because it's really cool just to see that the concept works, and it just needs to be planted in the right place. So this was a dumping ground before. It's a city-owned lot. It was next to a public park, and people, you can see that that's just TVs and cabinets and whatever garbage contractor dumped out there, and that was happening repeatedly. So we partnered with TD Green Streets and a local garden club, and we went around to the community, asked them what they would like to see in that area, what types of fruit trees. We found out later that they used to have a kind of like a communal orchard that was mostly guavas and grapes that was just south of this property before Industrial Park went in. So we didn't even know that going into it, but it was really cool that it kind of worked out, that people were like, yeah, that's where we used to go pick anyway. And we just kind of listened to them and heard what they wanted. So it's where we learned about sugar apples, and people wanted sapodillas because there weren't as many in the neighborhood as before, soursops and guavas. And we planted a lot of mangoes and avocados too. And the mangoes really using like Haitian varieties and Jamaican varieties. And we also made it a you-pick policy. So I think that's a great learning lesson that a city could do, is that this isn't regulated in any way. It's free for the community to pick from. It's not gated. So it's not, you don't have to be a member, and people pick the fruit and they know when to pick the fruit. And I think the species are diverse enough that it's not getting raided by, mango raiders, that everything's just fruiting at the same time, because there's probably 50 to 70 trees there, and the species are diverse enough. That means they're fruiting at different times. So it's really not going to be someone's, worthwhile to go there and just steal the fruit off of the 3 trees that are fruiting at that time. So yeah, it's been really cool to see. We planted another one in church in Delray that after they saw this, they wanted one there. And we planted one in Boynton Beach as well. So we have a few of these going now, and it's what we're calling our urban orchards. So just a little bit about our team. We have 11 full-time staff, and then we have 19 youth tree team, which is part-time staff. And so the youth tree team is really modeled after other groups, just like many of the programs that we do. And it's just been a really cool program from the start, and it's employing teens that are maintaining the trees, and they're also doing fun environmental trips around the area, and whether it's going kayaking or going to science museums or going catching invasive frogs at a nature preserve. They do fun stuff like that every month or two, but they work with us every Saturday, and they work 30 hours a week, Monday through Thursday during the summer. And that's generously supported by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so they're all paid. It's paid interns that are making competitive hourly wages. And they're driven around in two 12-passenger vans, and they are watering trees, they're staking trees, they're mulching trees. And so that's really how we get a lot of the maintenance needs done, especially in the summer. And they've been always a great group of kids that are, don't always get the chance to be outside. That's the main thing that when you ask them, what do you like about this? And it's like, oh, I never used to really go outside much. And I see now that I really like it. And so that's, obviously that's great to expose kids to that, and also see them kind of form a team and create friendships. The tree techs, this is tree technicians are full-time staff that are caring for the trees week in and week out. And so when we get a contract and we plant the trees, then we take care of those for a year. And so that means watering regularly for, let's say the first month we're there 4 times a week and we're watering those trees. And then after that, 3 times a week, and we just kind of taper it off. And, we're getting deliveries. So we're unloading trees, we're loading trees, we're pruning trees. So they are kept very busy, and they're also working to become arborists. So, you have to work with a tree care company for 3 years before you can take your test. So there's, pieces of workforce development and exposing people to this trade and this career path. And, a lot of these guys, well, all of the guys work in the neighborhoods where we're planting trees. So that's the other cool thing about it, is they're really taking care of trees that are going into their community. Okay. So we have a nursery that we started 3 years ago. And now this has 17,000 plants on it, 17,000 trees. And this is in West Boca. And it's run by our urban forestry director, who ran a nursery in San Francisco before moving to South Florida. And we have volunteer events here all the time. Really, 2-3 times a week, people are coming out, helping us pot things up or weed or move things around. We have a new program which is called Pick Up and Grow, and that is any community group can apply for up to 25 free native trees from us. This is funded by the Florida Forest Service. And this is really modeled after that program in Missouri, because they're doing 9,000 trees a year like this. And what really happens to us a lot of times is we'll get community groups that will call us up and they'll want free trees from us. But as a nonprofit, that was pretty hard to always respond to that need. So we developed this program that the Florida Forest Service started funding, and this allows us the ability to respond to those requests. So, like just this morning, there is a community group that's doing a cultural trail in the city of Opelika with interpretive signage, and it's going to go through the town. And they want to do it with native landscaping. but they're also a nonprofit. And so, you know, it's perfect to be able to be like, yes, we have this program. You can go to our website, you can apply for 25 free trees and come pick them up. And we give you the shovels and the mulch and the buckets, and you organize your community group. So if there's anyone interested in that, you can go to our website and check it out. It's called Pick Up and Grow. It's under the programs tab. And yeah, and come get your volunteer group and just come volunteer in the nursery. We just had the FAU football team out there. We get corporations there all the time that want to do like a team building activity or just be outside. So yeah, we'd love to have you out there. And that is the end of my presentation. I have a little video to show you. It's just, I think, a minute long, maybe 2, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions.
There is something about putting trees in the ground with other people that gives you that sense of giving back to the earth and that instant gratification of like knowing that you made an impact.
It was interesting when we started it, we knew that trees make our communities healthier, but we didn't really realize that the act of planting trees on how much that strengthens our community at the same time.
What makes us special is that we're planting trees with cities and municipalities, tons of volunteers, schools, foundations, other nonprofit groups.
It feels like the community coming together, and it's a uniting thing.
There's nothing else that a city can put into place that's going to appreciate and value over the years other than trees.
What drew me to community greening was the passion that Mark and Matt had for not only about the environment, but the disadvantages that my community had.
One of the reasons that we focus our efforts in lower income neighborhoods is because there's a lot more trees in more affluent communities than there are in lower income communities.
Organizations come into communities all the time and try to do work. The difference here, making sure that we had people a part of the process, not doing things for them, but with them.
So you really have to figure out how to work with the community and gain that trust. And it's not easy to do.
So me and him used to get on the golf cart. We used to knock on and say, hey, neighbor, this is who we are. We want to improve the community the way community greening does, and this is how we do it. We kind of created a style to those tree plants, which was, man, it feels like a party.
We definitely wanted to push it more South Florida style in terms of like, we like to have a good time.
And so that feeling of putting life in the ground that's gonna continue to give back over time, like it gets a lot of people pretty excited.
When you see greenery, it's like you see life, you see hope, you see things being, taken care of again. These things that we once had in the community where we can walk through anyone's backyard and we can pick a fruit or two, it just brings back, hey, this is starting to feel a little bit like home again.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mark. I mean, really good perspective on your operations and really, I mean, like the scope of different things that you kind of are addressing the problem of like not having enough trees. I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot to potentially tap into, and it's impressive to see like everything that you guys are up to. I guess at this moment, if anyone's got questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat here. I can see one here from John Harris. Do you have a tree size that you find to be best for both survival percentage and preferred by residents who get trees?
It's a great question. Yeah, so we've learned that our limits for planting is really a 25 gallon is the top. I mean, and that's really pushing it with volunteers. So for a city planting, we plant 15 and 25 gallon trees. We plant 25 gallon trees because we also get feedback from the community that we plant small trees. But it's like, that's what our campaign is to include the community into planting trees. And we're not really a tree planting company to planting ball and burlap with heavy equipment. That's not what we're doing. So our primary gallon size for planting is really 15. That's what we're planting. Anything lower than that, planting in a public space has a great chance of, getting run over by a mower, getting karate kicked by a kid, or, you know, it's just not, it's not that big enough. So anyway, 15. And then our tree giveaway size is a 3-gallon. And that's really because, you know, people are taking it to their car, people are walking with it, maybe a couple blocks. And really, you know, it's probably going to survive better in a residential property than a 15 that was going to require more water right away. And then another program we just started with the city of Delray, because of that, like, hey, I'd like a bigger tree, is they're doing the drop-off program where there's just a pilot project that they're funding, 200 trees for residents. And that's going to be a 15-gallon size tree. You can see it on our website. And that's really, I think it's a cool pilot program because it's going so well. We just launched it last week, and already 75 trees have been requested out of the 200. And so again, it's just like showing other cities that the city can fund trees that are going to residential property. So it's all funded by the city. So if you're a resident in Delray, you can say, hey, I want a 15-gallon tree. You can go to our website. You can look at the different species you can choose from, and then we'll deliver it to you. And then again, that's from Sacramento Tree Foundation. We went out to Sacramento Tree Foundation. We saw this, and they're just doing this day in and day out, delivering trees to residents in Sacramento. So we're doing that as a pilot program here in Delray.
I mean, I guess to kind of add on that, what species like are your most popular, and like are there for different programs, I mean, they kind of, it seemed like they you know, you had some where you were kind of focusing on fruit trees, some for natives. Like, have there been any like really big trends in terms of like what homeowners want versus like what you're getting for the plans that you guys do for various like partners and that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's, you know, you want to focus on diversity, and then a lot of times though you're limited by soil types and whether it's going to be continuously watered or something, you know, so something that's extremely resilient like gumbos or silver buttonwoods, or, you know, anything that, you know, it's going to require less maintenance long term. But it really depends on the property and where we can. We're, you know, trying to be as diverse as we possibly can with native species. You know, residents, we've learned too, like residents typically don't want a big tree because they don't have that much property. So they'd like the medium sized to small tree at giveaways. At the same time, like paradise trees, we just gave away paradise trees and people were super happy with it. I think it's, you know, the way it looks ornamental, and probably the name influences people's choice too. And so, you know, that was really popular that we just gave away. Stoppers are always really popular because it's something that's, you know, pretty versatile and smaller. But yeah, we try to give away a lot of different things. And on the fruit tree side, you know, it's like depends. We recently gave away June plums. A lot of people from Jamaica were super psyched that we had June plums, and that's something that they use in Jamaica. And so yeah, it really depends. And I mean, one thing we've learned though is that with that diversity is like you got to be somewhat realistic with where you're planting trees. Yeah, it looks great on a planting plan to be as diverse as possible, but is that inkwood really gonna survive out in that sandy park that you planted it? You know, it's that kind of thing of being realistic over time and seeing what's lived and what hasn't lived. And then also where we're sourcing the trees from. We grow up, now that we have Michelle on our staff and she's sourcing the seeds, and we're, you know, really growing things up from seed that she's sourced. That's going to make it so much more resilient and diverse of what we can offer when, you know, in the past, let's say we've had to purchase something and we don't know if those sand pines came from North Florida or they come from, and is that why they're not doing great out here? Or, you know, that, you know, that type of question, like we're controlling more of our inventory. And just kind of a last piece of that, it's been 7 years. And when we started this 7 years ago, there was much more availability of different trees, in, you know, size of 15-gallon natives, for example. And so, you could go to one big nursery and they might have, 10 to 20 different types of 15-gallon native trees. And now trying to find those same things, you might go to one nursery and they have like 4 available. So if you're trying to do, package deliveries and try to do a planting plan, it might be harder to find a 15-gallon mastic or, something just to give you an example.
Mark,
yeah.
when you do the community tree giveaways, do the residents get informational sheets or information just in general about the trees and the plants that they're going to then be installing and how to care for them in the future and their mature size and everything?
Yeah, we have a tag on it, the tree, and on one side of the tag, it has the planting instructions about calling 811 and how to dig the hole and watering. And then on the other side, it has the species information. So about their mature canopy and any characteristics that they have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Is the first tree still alive?
it is. It's a paradise tree, and it's right next to
Nice.
a church. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, there's a lot of trees still alive. One thing that we're doing now, obviously there's a lot of trees still alive, but what we're seeing is that trees need maintenance more than 1 year. And so we're working with the city of Delray specifically to increase that maintenance time to 3 years. And then we're also working with the Florida Forest Service for long-term maintenance on all the places that we've planted that are in those low tree equity score neighborhoods, to go back and reassess the trees and keep taking care of them. Because like if a tree loses a trunk guard, for example, even though it's been there for 3 years, it's not on our contract anymore. And the one tree that lost the trunk guard, its survivability goes way down, because then all of a sudden whoever's contracted to mow that place is going to be just kind of girdling it. And so like we want the ability to be able to go back to all those places, replace trunk guards, restake, do some pruning. And fortunately the Florida Forest Service has been behind us and supporting that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I know that you're like in progress right now in terms of supplying a lot of your own trees. Like what percentage of all the trees that you guys typically are giving out like are coming from there at this point? And like what point and like where would you like to be someday?
Well, so yeah, I mean, natives, we're up to giving away 100% of the natives that we're growing. So, I mean, because we've been able to catch up to what a 3-gallon is since, we've started. But the demand is so high, we're going to be running out of all of those. And so we're going to need to be buying 3-gallon natives for a little bit until we catch up on, everything else that's coming in. So ideally natives, we'd like to be growing everything ourselves. It's the fruit trees that we're purchasing our fruit trees because we don't have the capability of, I mean, you need a lot of expertise in grafting and, different types of applications that they need that native trees don't. So, one day that is what we'd all love to be able to doing is to be doing fruit trees too, but we just don't have that capacity.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, in the right place, like with all the mango breeding and stuff that goes on around here. So that's exciting that you're even venturing forth on that effort a little bit. And like I know you're sourcing a lot of them, but yeah, it's a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, luckily there are a lot of places doing it around here that we don't have to go far to source them. So, but yeah, who knows if we will ever have that capacity, but it'd be cool if we were able to do that.
Cool. Well, I'm not seeing too many other questions here, and it's getting to be the end of the hour. So I just wanted to thank Mark again for being our guest speaker here for this month. And hopefully like we'll keep stay in touch with you, and we always enjoy seeing the urban greening crew community greening crew, sorry, it's a lot of urban forest,
Yeah.
community greening, like, but the community greening crew, like when you guys drop by, it's always good to see you when you're here at Extension.
Yeah,
So
no, thanks for having us, and thanks for having me on today too.
yeah, and so yeah, I guess we'll I'm sure we'll be reconnecting more here in the near future. And I'll send you a link to the to everything here and follow up. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and do the post survey, and then I mean we'll give you a couple minutes for that. I think everything for CEUs should be processed through Eventbrite, but if you got any questions, go ahead and feel free to like email me and Kara, and we'll try and get you taken care of. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. Okay, it should be launching right now. All right, I think I'll give it another 20 or 30 seconds here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. We'll go ahead and save that part of our educational mission, just showing that like folks are learning things with the pre-posts. But yeah, thank you all for being here for this month. I think next month will be Henry Mayer from Miami-Dade, and it'll be Mike Orphanides from Broward County, and they'll be covering grades and standards. So it's always a perennial topic, particularly like if you're doing tree planting and that type of thing. So thank you again, Mark, and everybody take care. Have a good rest of your month here.